This is how Swiftcourt's secure payment service works. To use secure payment with Swiftcourt, select the payment service as your payment method in the contract. The service is available for purchases up to 50,000 euros and can be selected in most of our contract templates. Once both parties have signed the contract, the payment service will be visible at the top of the contract view. Click on the green button to access the payment service. The first view is an overview of the process. Here, the seller begins by accepting the payment service's general terms and conditions. The seller then confirms that the item and purchase sum are correct. Once everything has been confirmed, it is time for the seller to choose which bank account the purchase price should be paid into when the transaction is complete. First, the seller selects their bank from the list. The seller is then redirected to Tink, our partner. The seller enters their personal identification number and logs into their online bank. Next, the seller will choose the account they wish to connect. Once the seller has selected an account, it is the buyer's turn to pay the purchase sum into the escrow account. The buyer now receives an email informing them that it is time to pay the purchase sum. The link in the email takes the buyer directly to the payment service. Like the seller, the buyer accepts the payment service's terms and conditions and confirms the item and the purchase sum. The payment service's fee is also shown here and is paid alongside the purchase sum sent to the escrow account. At this stage, the buyer must also specify where the money for the purchase comes from for regulatory reasons. The buyer then selects a payment method for the payment. The easiest way is to make a bank transfer via Tink, which we will do in this video. The buyer selects their bank from the list and is then redirected to Tink. Here, the buyer logs into their online bank and selects the account from which they want to make the transfer. The transfer is approved, and then it's done. Once the transfer has been initiated, it normally takes 1 working day for the purchase price to arrive in the escrow account. When the purchase sum has reached the escrow account, you will both be notified by email. Now it's time for you to plan the handover of the item. For smaller transactions, the seller can send the item by post. However, we always recommend that you meet up if possible. Arrange a meeting and confirm the handover on your mobile phones on site. You can access the payment service by logging into app.swiftcourt.com or by clicking on the link in the email. Once you have both confirmed the handover, the purchase sum is paid out to the seller. You will both have access to a transaction overview, and the buyer will also receive a receipt for the service fee.
Read more about the service at swiftcourt.com.